Hello and welcome to the video and welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to look at the history of the Call of Duty franchise. We'll be looking at the main games, so ones like Big Red 1, Finest Hour and Road to Victory will not be included, as they are spin-offs of the main game. Let's crack on with the video, shall we? The original and first Call of Duty was made by Infinity Ward and released in 2003. It was originally sold on PC, although they did make a remastered version for the Xbox 360 and PS3. The team that worked on Call of Duty also helped to develop the Medal of Honor series, so had some experience in creating a first-person shooter. The game worked by giving you different objectives during a level that worked as checkpoints. Rather than the usual lone wolf style of other first-person shooters of its age, it used an AI team that reacted to the events that were happening during the game, which helped with giving the game a more involved feeling. During a level, the player is able to pick up weapons that have been dropped, giving them more freedom. Another feature that was praised by reviewers at the time is the fact that rather than just showing one side of the war, it showed it from the American, English and Soviet sides. The game was praised by reviewers and sold very well. In 2005, Infinity Ward released the next game in the franchise, Call of Duty 2. This game was released as a launch title on the Xbox 360. It was also released on the PC. It was not released on the PlayStation because it was a Microsoft exclusive title. The game ran in a very similar way to the first game, but with some improvements to the HUD and user interface. It also now added health regeneration and a warning if a grenade was nearby. The game featured the same design of having the player play as different armies in World War II. You played as a US soldier involved in storming the beaches at D-Day, as a Soviet troop defending Moscow and Stalingrad, and as two different British soldiers, one in the North Africa campaign and then later on in Operation Overlord. The game got good reviews upon release, with many saying the health regeneration system was better than the health bar from the first game. In 2006, Activision announced that Call of Duty 3 was in production and was being built by Treyarch. This was their second game of the franchise after doing the spin-off for Call of Duty 2 called Big Red 1. This, however, was their first full game. The game was released as the launch game for the PS3. It's open-ended in design, giving the player multiple routes to complete objectives, but plays nearly the same as the older games. Players fight alongside AI-controlled teammates against enemies who use various attack patterns, hide behind cover, and will regroup to improve defensive positions. A new feature added to this game was the ability to throw grenades back. It also featured the same health regeneration as the last game. As with the other main games in the franchise, the player plays as three different soldiers. The game is set in the later part of World War II, from 1944 onwards. It was the last game to be set in the European theatre of war for 11 years. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was released in 2007. It was the first game in the series to be set in the modern age. It was released on the PS3, the Xbox 360 and the PC. The game was set in 2011 and was again played through different perspectives during the campaign. In a change from the older games, however, the stories the player went through were all happening at the same time across the game. Once the campaign was completed, you would unlock an extra mission to free hostages on a plane called Mile High Club. This level had no impact on the story and was there as a congratulations to the player for making it to the end. One feature they added to the game was the fact that when a grenade landed near you, it would show you what direction it was in, which allowed you to decide what to do about it. Although the story mode for the game was praised highly, one of the biggest changes came in the multiplayer, which featured kill streaks for the first time. Kill streaks would allow the player to call things in, such as UAVs or airstrikes, depending on how long they could stay alive and keep getting kills on the other team. Call of Duty World at War was developed by Treyarch. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, Wii and Xbox 360 in November 2008. It is the fifth main installment of the Call of Duty series and returned to the setting of World War II. The game was also the first title in the Black Ops storyline, and it was the first game to introduce the zombies feature. The game has you playing as soldiers from different armies across the war. The game was set for the first time in the Pacific Theatre, as well as in Eastern Europe. This was a large change to the franchise, as they were able to bring in the Imperial Japanese Army. The game has a more gritty and mature feeling compared to older games. Treyarch used the game engine to add limb dismemberment and burns to characters on screen. The game played very similar to older games, but with the refinements that Call of Duty 4 brought along. The multiplayer kept kill streaks from Call of Duty 4, but adjusted them to keep more in keeping with the time period. So recon planes replaced UAVs, and dogs were introduced as a high-level kill streak. In November 2009, Infinity Ward and Activision released Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The game is a direct sequel to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. It follows on from where the 2007 game left off. It added some fan favourites such as Ghost. The story mode again has you playing as different soldiers. You play as a member of Task Force 141, who are still looking for the bad guy from Call of Duty 4, and as a private in the US Army who is trying to hold back a Russian invasion of the USA. It plays very similarly to the 2007 game, but with some graphical improvements and a more open feeling to the levels. The game was released to massive praise and fast sales, but it wasn't without its issues. A particular level, no Russian, caused a stir for the events it depicted in it. During the level, the player has the choice not to fire their gun, but it will trigger the level to fail. You can, however, fire the gun off randomly at signs around the player and still continue the mission. Call of Duty Black Ops was released in 2010 and was developed by Treyarch. It was released on Microsoft Windows, the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360 and the Wii. It serves as a direct sequel to Call of Duty World at War. Set in the 1960s during the Cold War, in this game the player plays as several different people from the usual COD format, playing as 2 CIA operatives as well as a Red Army soldier, but only in one mission. Locations featured in the game include Cuba, the Soviet Union, the US, Hong Kong, Laos, Vietnam and the Arctic Circle. Although it's a first-person shooter game, the game allows you to fly a Hind helicopter in one mission and an SR-71 spy plane in another. This was the first game where the player character talks during cutscenes and during missions. This outing also brought back the popular Zombies game mode to multiplayer and split-screen co-op. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 released in 2011. It is the first game in the franchise to be developed by 2 developers at once. This is due to staff from Infinity Ward leaving and starting their own developer. Sledgehammer Games were brought in on board to help. The game uses a reworked version of the engine from COD Modern Warfare 2, so it has a very similar feel. The game was released from Microsoft Windows, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Wii. It is the 3rd and final installment of the original Call of Duty Warfare saga. A direct sequel to 2009's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and is the 8th Call of Duty installment overall. The game's campaign follows Modern Warfare 2 and begins right after the events of its final mission. Similar to Modern Warfare 2, it is centered around Task Force 141, which contains Captain Price, Soap McTavish and Yuri, one of the playable characters. Alongside the Delta Force and the SAS, they hunt Vladimir Makarov, a Russian terrorist who leads the ultra-nationalists party. He leads several terror attacks across Europe, triggering a large-scale war between the ultra-nationalists and friendly forces. The game had more quick-time events than other games, which is something that players felt made it feel less fluid than other ones. The game did, however, release to critical acclaim. 2. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was developed by Treyarch. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 in November 2012. Black Ops 2 is the 9th game in the Call of Duty franchise, and a direct sequel to the 2010 game Black Ops. The campaign follows up the story of Black Ops and is set in the late 80s and 2025. In the 80s, the player switches control between Alex Mason and Frank Woods, 2 of the protagonists from Black Ops, while in 2025, the player assumes the control of Mason's son, David, codenamed Section. Both time periods involve the characters pursuing Raul Menendez, a Nicaraguan cartel leader who was responsible for the kidnapping of Woods in the 80s, and later sparking a second Cold War in 1925. The campaign features non-linear gameplay and has multiple endings that are decided on based upon the player's choices in the game. This was the first game in the series to feature gameplay from the future, and it was also the first game to allow the player to select weapons before the level started. It was released to mostly positive reviews. Call of Duty Ghosts was developed by Infinity Ward. It is the 10th major installment in the Call of Duty series and the 6th developed by Infinity Ward. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and Wii U in November 2013. The game was re-released with the launch of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Ghost received generally positive reviews from critics, with most praising its multiplayer gameplay and the introduction of the new game mode Extinction, but criticising it for its single-player campaign, rehashing of familiar concepts, general lack of innovation and storyline editing. During the campaign, you play as mainly one character, with points where you can play as other characters, but normally only for that mission. A new feature for the game was the chance to play as the dog Riley, the first non-human playable character. The game got average reviews when released. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare was released in November 2014. The PC, PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game were developed by Sledgehammer Games. The game features significant changes, unlike other installments. Advanced Warfare does not use a traditional heads-up display. Instead, all information is relayed to the player via holographic projections from the weapon equipment. The general gunplay remains unchanged, apart from new mechanics such as exo movements. These exo movements are performed from the exoskeleton, which allows the player to boost, dash and skyjump. It is the first game in the Call of Duty series that allows the player to choose different types of conventional weaponry. For example, the game features regular conventional firearms, but the player can choose to use laser or directed energy weaponry, both of which have differing attributes. In addition to exo movements, the game also features different exo abilities, such as exo cloak, which allows the player to turn transparent for stealth for a period of time. The single-player campaign features one playable character, Jack Mitchell, as opposed to multiple characters in most previous Call of Duty games. It used pre-rendered cutscenes, similar to Call of Duty Black Ops 2, to assist in the story of the campaign. After each mission, the player is given a certain number of upgrade points that can be used to upgrade the exosuit or weapons. The player can upgrade detection, armor, resistance, tactical, lethal grenade, sprint, recoil, flinch, reload, quick aim, and battery. The number of points that are given is determined by the player's performance in the mission. The player can switch between different grenades, all of which possess distinctly different abilities. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 was developed by Treyarch. It is the 12th entry in the Call of Duty series and the sequel to the 2012 game Call of Duty Black Ops 2. It was released on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in November 2015. Black Ops takes place in the year 2065, 40 years after the events of Black Ops 2, in a world facing upheaval from climate change and new technologies. Similar to its predecessors, the story follows a group of Black Ops soldiers. The game is the first Call of Duty game released after Activision parted with Microsoft Studios and partnered with Sony Computer Entertainment, which secured the timed exclusivity of the game's downloadable content. Upon release, the game received generally positive reviews from critics, although many said the game didn't provide anything new or exciting for the players. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was developed by Infinity Ward in a new 3-year deal with Activision. It is the 13th installment in the Call of Duty series and was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in November 2016. The game was set in space rather than on the ground like other games. The player controls one character and can customize him and his spacecraft whilst flying to different planets to do missions. The game was released to positive critic reviews. Unfortunately, the game wasn't liked by fans, as the franchise had gone in a direction fans did not enjoy. The game did not sell as well as planned, causing Activision to rethink their strategy. Call of Duty World War II was developed by Sledgehammer Games. It released in November 2017 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It is the 14th main installment in the Call of Duty series and the first title in the series to be set primarily during World War II since Call of Duty World at War in 2008. The game's campaign is set in a European theatre. Sledgehammer Games were interested in bringing the series back to World War II after developing their previous title, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, which featured advanced movement and futuristic warfare technology. Studio head Michael Condrey stated that he was unsure if a World War II game would feel right after creating such a futuristic title like Advanced Warfare. But the developers ultimately decided to create a game from this time period. They also chose to include the atrocities and Nazi extermination camps apparent during this time period in the campaign mode in order to deliver an authentic war story. The game released to good reviews, with many recognising the return to the World War II setting, but claimed the game did little to improve upon other games set in the same time period. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was released in October 2018. It was developed by Treyarch. It was released on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It is a sequel to the 2015 game Call of Duty Black Ops 3, the 5th entry in the Black Ops sub-series and the 15th installment in the Call of Duty series overall. Black Ops 4 is the first Call of Duty title without a traditional single-player campaign mode. Instead, it has solo missions mode, which focuses on the backstory of the game's multiplayer characters, known as specialists. The mission takes place between Black Ops 2 and 3. Some of the specialists also carried over from Black Ops 3. The multiplayer mode is the first in this series not to feature automatic health regeneration and introduces both predictive recoil and a new ballistic system. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 was developed by Infinity Ward, serving as the 16th overall installment in the Call of Duty series, as well as a reboot of the Modern Warfare sub-series. It was released in October 2019 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The game features a whole new game engine and improved focus on tactical gameplay. There are several moments during the campaign when the player is given a choice on the actions they can take that will cause different responses based on what they do. The game still features characters from the original Modern Warfare and mentions events from that game, but is seen as a soft reboot. The game was released to critical acclaim and has pushed Call of Duty back to the front when it comes to first-person shooters. It is the second Call of Duty game to have a Battle Royale game mode that was first introduced in Black Ops 4. It is, at the moment, however, the first Call of Duty game not to have Zombies mode since Ghosts. The Battle Royale mode, called Warzone, can be downloaded as a free game, but progress is not linked to the normal game and multiplayer mode. Although there has been no official statement from Activision about this year's Call of Duty game, leaks and data mines from files have led people to believe it will be a reboot of the Black Ops games after the success of rebooting the Modern Warfare story. It is worth noting, without an official statement from Activision, any information must be taken with a big pinch of salt. Thank you for watching to the end. I hope you learned something you didn't already know about Call of Duty. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe not to miss future content, and leave a comment of your favourite Call of Duty game. Personally, I've always enjoyed the original Modern Warfare games, although I have to admit the new one is climbing in ranks the more I play it. I hope you have a good day, and as always stay safe, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.